And it's also a nice symbol to have it in a museum of future, because for everyone working in the field of education, working for education is working for the future. So it's just a perfect place and occasion to have this conference and this release today. So thank you, everyone. I want also to welcome all the participants online, because this session is broadcast on YouTube. And we will have different presentations afterwards with a Q&A session, a short Q&A session. But there will be a lot of results to present to you. Of course, it's just a part of the results that we are going to show to you today. But then we have much more in the report, but I will come back on that a bit later on. Just want to do some housekeeping for those online to turn off your phones, turn off the camera, turn off the sound. And the chat function is enabled, so you can interact online. So today we will have, as you know, it's the D-Day for the TIMSS 23 international result to be released. We have two main presentations. First with Matthias van Davier with the TIMSS international report and results. We'll learn a lot about the main results of TIMSS 2023. And after Matthias' presentation, we'll have Dirk Asted will address his own key takeaways for policy and practice regarding these results. So we are looking forward to hear from our both speakers after me. I would just make maybe a brief introduction on the TIMSS results. So the TIMSS survey in general. So as you know, TIMSS stand for the Trends in International Mathematics and Science Study, with double S. Sometimes it's called TIMSS, T-I-M-M-S, but it's T-I-M-S-S, Math and Science Study. And it's directed by the IEA TIMSS and PIRLS International Study Center at Boston College Lynn School of Education and Human Development. TIMSS is an international assessment of student achievement in math and science for 4th and 8th grade. It measured trends since 1995, and TIMSS data have enabled countries all around the world to make evidence-based decisions to improve educational policies related to mathematics and science teaching and learning. So TIMSS, it's the 8th cycle already today, and provides 20 years more than 20 years of trends data, and it includes a lot of data on achievement, but also regarding a lot of contextual data on families, on schools, on teachers. So it's a huge of data. I will just give you some numbers. So 650,000 students were assessed all around the world in 64 countries and 6 benchmarking systems. And of course, as we are here, you know that all these results are analyzed everywhere, and they are really useful resources for researchers, but policymakers, educators all around the world. They can analyze all this data. As I said, will be much more available on the website. So just for you to know that, of course, there is the international report being published, the press release, some infographics, and a presentation to 2 new so-called IEA teacher snippets, which are a way to address the results, to communicate the results more directly to the teacher. So that's really a nice publication from IEA about let's be as close as possible for the teachers and provide them information with regards to the studies. So as I said, today is a D-Day for a lot of people around the world, and my first thought is for all the contributors from every country. I'm thinking of my team, but it's not only on my team, it's on the team in every country participating, the researchers, the national coordinators. So it's hundreds of people around the world who have been working hard for 4 years on this survey. I'm thinking, of course, about the staff from the IEA, organizing the study, from Boston College, to run all these surveys in a very smooth way and with a high quality data at the end of the day. So That's a wonderful story that ends today, but it's the start to begin the analysis. So, as I said, today we have two speakers. So first, we have Professor Matthias van Davier. I will briefly introduce him to you. Matthias van Davier is the Donald Monon S.J. Professor in Education at the Lynch School of Education and Human Development at Boston College. And he also serves as an Executive Director at the TIMSS and PIRLS International Study Center. And prior to joining the faculty at Boston College, he held the Distinguished Research Scientist position in the National Board of Medical Examiners in Philadelphia. We will, after him, hear from Dr. Dirk Asted for key takeaways from the TIMSS 2023 international results. As the Executive Director of IEA, Dirk Asted oversees operations, studies, and services, and drives the overall strategic vision of the association. He develops and maintains relationships with members, countries, researchers, policymakers, and other key players. Dirk Asted also serves as co-editor-in-chief of the yearly journal. That's it for today, but before moving on, I just want to add some words on a more personal note, because it's my last IEA event in quality of IEA chairperson, as it's the end of my second term this year. So, and I would like just to say that I feel very honored and privileged to have served the association for 6 years now. It has been a wonderful adventure for me, and I learned a lot, and I especially met a lot of people around the world very dedicated to the association, very dedicated to the collaborative spirit, which is key in our association, because it's all about a huge collaborative adventure growing in the field of education. So I was very proud to serve as chair, and I'm also very happy to see how IEA has grown and grown over the years. And I can testify, at least from the French point of view, in France, IEA studies are nowadays really key in the public debate in education. So, and it's the case in many countries, I know, discussing with many of you all the time around the world. That means the high quality of our studies are fully recognized today, and this is key for the authority of the association. And key for the authority, but also for the results to be taken into the debate. So I would like to thank everyone for your support during these 6 years, and IEA staff and the study centers and all the contributors and the researchers, like we called the IEA family, because it's a real community. And I just want to say that I will not go away from IEA. I will stay around, of course, but I think after 6 years it's time to hand over, and I'm very happy to hand over to pass the baton, let's say, to my dear colleague Christian Kleijden, GA representative from Denmark, who was elected as the new chair and starting his position in January, and I'm very happy for him, and I wish him good luck, and I will invite him to say a few words now. Thank you, Christian, if you can come.
Thank you, Thierry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman of the IEA. Being a researcher myself, I feel real privileged to be part of these studies, this organization. In my view, we are not only having a release of the data and the results, we have a celebration of the enormous contribution that each participant country or benchmark region have contributed with to this study. And what we are actually celebrating is not only an Olympic race of being better than other systems, but we are all gaining for the common objective of improving education by understanding teaching practices, processes of education and policies in order to make a brighter and better future for the next generation. Because in my view, good teaching equals better futures. So thank you so much for letting me say a few words, and I'm looking so much forward for the results today. But there is a future also for coming results in the many years to come until the next cycle starts. And having been NRC for TIMSS in 2 cycles, I know it's only a few days where we catch our breath and then we start all over again. But it's important for the future of our children in the whole world. Thank you. I leave the floor to Matthias von der Wier.
Okay, good morning, good day, good evening around the world. Thank you very much for the nice introduction, Thierry, and thank you, Christian and Thierry, for giving some context about TIMSS. I would also like to thank our hosts for the amazing venue here, so it's really an absolutely wonderful place to be and to present the TIMSS results. And as Christian said, so we are taking a deep breath, we are celebrating here, and we should be all very happy that this is happening. So I'm Matthias von der Wier. I serve as the Executive Director of the TIMSS and PIRLS International Study Center at Boston College, and it's my honor to present some of the key results. Let's dive right into the results with a little bit of a quote by somebody who was very important for, I think, research around the world, actually, in the last 4 years. We we certainly still remember the COVID pandemic, and Dr. Anthony Fauci from the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases in the US said, well, you've got to evolve with the science. Science is a self-correcting process. And I think that applies to us as well as to all other sciences. We constantly evolve. TIMSS is 28 years old. It will be a few years older in a few years, with TIMSS 27, as Christian alluded to. We always improve, and I think TIMSS 23 is a big step forward, while not forgetting our past and while still being true and honest to be able to say that TIMSS remains the gold standard for long-term trends in mathematics and science. So let me jump into the results. So the website is live, we have results. I'm going to talk a little bit about the mathematics and science achievement results. And as always, we have a large group of countries, we have our scores, and we all focus in tendency on this first table, which is a very important table of average achievement around the world. But I don't want to spend too much time on this table at the same time. We have this table every time. There's always some up and down movement. I would like to look at the bigger picture, and I would like to look at the patterns that we see behind these average achievement results. We also have very important contexts of learning. We have contexts that describe how we are seeing the different levels of achievement in each country. And I would like to essentially move us away from only looking at the ups and downs to also understand what's going on around the world. We have these great international benchmarks that tell us how students do at different points on our TIMSS scale. So we have the advanced benchmark at 625, we have the high benchmark at 550, we have the intermediate benchmark at 475, and then we have the low benchmark at 400, each of which gives us context what the students at these different levels of the benchmark know and can do. What we see is that around the world, in all the participating countries, on average, 91% of all students reach the low level, the basic level, the level that we hope every student reaches at least. And indeed, 91% of the students do that in mathematics. 70% reach even the intermediate benchmark, so they go somewhat higher. 35% on average go to the high benchmark and reach that level and have some more advanced knowledge, and then the fully advanced benchmark of 625 is reached by 7% of the students around the world. So that's a great achievement to be able to say something about how students are doing at the different levels of proficiency in TIMSS. A very similar picture is there in science. So 90% reach the low benchmark, a great achievement. That many countries have more than 90% reaching basic levels of good science education. The intermediate benchmark, again, is reached by 70%. That's a very big number. And again, 31% at the high benchmark, at the advanced benchmark, again, 7%. These benchmarks, there are descriptions online, what in detail the students can do, what kind of skills they have at the different levels, and each country has their own percentages, so we can better understand the breadth of knowledge, the distribution of knowledge in the countries, not only the average, because that is only one piece of information, a very important one, but we should also look at who reaches the different levels of achievement. I would like to do the same with grade 8. Again, we have a large list of countries. We have benchmarking participants as well. And we will again see a list of countries with some ups and downs, and that's of course something we will dig into in the following hours and days. And we will probably very much focus again at the average achievement, but we should never forget that each country has a range of achievement. We have students who are high performing in each country, students that are average for the country, and students that are lower performing within each country. So we should look at the average achievement and think about how did we change over time, how do we compare to other countries, but at the same time we have a very important task to understand the breadth of achievement that we have in each of the countries. So let me go to the same picture. So in mathematics, in grade 8, we see a tiny bit of a shift. So the low benchmark is reached by 81%, somewhat less than in the 4th grade, even though, again, those are different. It's of course different mathematics, it's different science, it's much more diversified and more complex, of course. So things shift around a little bit. It's still a big number. The intermediate benchmark is reached by 55% of all kids around the country, around the world. The high benchmark is reached by 28%. The advanced benchmark still at 7%. A similar picture in science. Again, we have 80% at the low benchmark. We have 56% at the intermediate benchmark, 20% at the high benchmark, and at the advanced benchmark we have 6% of our students reaching the science level. Not everybody can get to the advanced level. That's what TIMSS is all about. Of course, we want to have challenging questions that are not easy for everybody, but we would like to know that many students reach the basic level, the low benchmark that allows us to say, well, they learned the necessary skills in mathematics and science to move on to the next grade, to then eventually graduate from school. Let me talk a little bit about trends. TIMSS stands for trends in mathematics and science, and we are taking this very seriously. we always try to look back as well as to the future. So we really want to understand how countries participating in TIMSS are changing. Let me jump again right into this. We have on the top mathematics, on the bottom science. And around the participating countries, we see about the same number of increases and decreases. And we see no change in 22 countries in mathematics, no change in 21 countries in science, whereas we see roughly the same number of countries with increases, actually a tiny bit more countries increase, surprisingly, than decrease maybe. And that's a very nice picture. So there's always some change, but it seems pretty balanced. So it's something that you can't expect that every country around the world will always just increase. So there are changes in the education system, changes in populations. Things might change in ways that sometimes do not lead to an increase, of course. And that's what TIMSS, again, is about. We are monitoring education. We are not judging in some ways. So it's something about understanding what's going on in education worldwide. Now we get to the 8th grade. Here we have a slightly different picture. In this picture, as you see, there's again a big group with no change or almost no change, very few points maybe. Whereas we have a lot of countries comparably showing a decrease compared to the countries that show an increase. So you see only 3 countries that actually increase in the TIMSS 8th grade mathematics and science score, whereas we have 14 versus 15 countries with a decrease in that score. So very different from the 4th grade, which made us think, of course, and we continue to think. These are the results that we see now. We have to analyze deeply. We have to look into what's going on in each country. I'm sure countries will pick this up and look into what's happened in their own backyard, so to speak, and will look into other data, not only TIMSS, but related data, because every country will also have specific information that we cannot gather at the international level. But this is one of the things that certainly will be of worth of discussion, and I'm sure Dirk will pick the results up in his notes. So we should talk more about this, obviously, in the following days. So I'm moving a little bit into the contextual data. TIMSS does not only focus on achievement, TIMSS also has really a rich collection of contextual data. And we would like to also understand how the student background relates to student achievement. Again, it's not everything only about the average score. It's also about how TIMSS achievement data relates to what's going on in the home of the student, what's going on in the school, what's going on inside of the student. So how do they feel about school? How much do they like what they learn, etc. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the important correlates or predictors of achievement that we found. There are many more on the website. Speaking about the website, Thierry mentioned we have 2 presentations. We actually have 2.5 presentations. So we have a little video of the website that shows the interactive features at the end of my presentation here, and I will introduce that a little bit later. And there we can see a lot more of the context data, so I invite all of you to look into that in detail. So let's go to the first result on the context data. We have home socioeconomic status. That comes from the home questionnaire. The parents are reporting here. And we categorized the responses of the parents with respect to education, occupation, home resources into 3 broad categories: higher, middle, and lower socioeconomic status. And we see that this variable is a very important predictor of how well students will be doing. So we have a quite substantial difference between the higher group and the lower group. If you look, this is 90-some points between these groups. The groups are, the lower SES group is only 22% big, the middle group is 48%, the high group is 30% big, and we see quite a big difference between these three groups, actually. Even the middle SES group has quite a big difference to the high SES group. So there you still see more than 40 points difference. So the contexts of education are extremely important. Another one, so just to jump back, you cannot do too much about home SES. So that's something that is hard to change. What we can do is, of course, change what education is doing and maybe to minimize or reduce that effect. Maybe where we can do things about is to look at student absences. And we also see a picture that we don't like to see. There are students who don't go to school regularly, who might miss school once a week or once every 2 weeks. And just look at the average scores. We have here the mathematics score for grade 8. And between those students who never miss a day of school or rarely ever miss a day of school and those who miss school regularly or very often, there's a huge difference in average achievement. That's again around all the TIMSS countries. So there is something where we can do something about it, and we really should be concerned about those students who simply don't get a chance to learn because they're not at school. Same picture essentially in science. So we do really need to understand better what keeps them away from school and how maybe potentially get those kids who are missing school quite often, how we can get them back to attend school on a regular basis. Again, these differences will be different depending on the country, and we have the results on the interactive web page. So I can not show all the different country results here, but I invite you to explore that in detail. So let's go to some other variables that we talk about in the report. We ask students whether they like mathematics, learning mathematics, I should say. And as an example, we picked the 4th grade because, again, I cannot show everything here. And we have 44% of students who say they like mathematics very much. We have 32% of the students who say they somewhat like mathematics. And then we have 24% of students who say they do not like mathematics. And again, we see differences, not as big, but still substantive and somewhat concerning differences. If students do not like mathematics, on average, they do not perform as well as students who say they do like mathematics very much. Here's a little bit of the chicken and egg problem, of course. Do they not like mathematics because they have a difficulty learning mathematics? And how do we change that? So we probably have to put the lever on both sides and try to change something on both ends to make mathematics more enjoyable, as well as make mathematics maybe more accessible to students to be able to understand it better. And then they might like it better as well. Let's look at grade 8. Without going into detail, just look at the numbers. Between grade 4 and grade 8, the number of students who say they like mathematics very much drops quite a bit. So without all the technical details, just this overall effect. At grade 8, you will see fewer students saying they like mathematics or science. And those who like mathematics and science tend to perform better than those who do not like mathematics or science. So another thing that can be deeply explored and seen maybe based on additional data within countries, maybe based on initiatives that go on in countries to see what can be done about this. But certainly a thing oops, oh, that was the wrong button. To think more about this. A related variable, not whether you like the subject, but whether you feel confident about being able to solve problems in the subject, to understand the subject. We also ask students about how much they think they can do science, they can do mathematics, they will understand what the teacher explains, etc. And here we also see very big differences. Students who say they are feeling very confident, on average, perform really, really well, versus students who do not feel confident. Students who feel somewhat confident are sitting somewhere in between. We have a similar picture, again, in science. Again, in grade 8, not too many students tend to say they are very confident, but those who do have, on average, a much higher performance than students who say they are not confident in science in this case. And again, one of those things that we should digest, explore more, and think about how this might actually then help us better understand how we can move into the future in science and mathematics education. I'm almost done. I would really invite you to look at the website, and we will show a short video about this. The report is fully web-based. We still have downloads in customary formats, so you can download the scales, the data in Excel and PDF format, but we focus more on the web-based format to allow users to more fully interact with this web page. We try to make it easy to use. We hope we were successful with that. So users can interact and sort, select data, maneuver from grades and subjects to other grades and subjects. And we have this double focus always. We have a section on achievement data alone, on trends over time, also on the trends and the benchmarks that I explained early in the talk. But we also talk a lot about the context of learning at the student level, the home level, the school level as well. And I would really like to invite you to further explore this after my short video that I'm going to show. And now comes my thank you section, and I have to thank so many people. I'm just showing a few pictures of our staff at Boston College. So this is the group of people working at the International Studies Center. I cannot show all the pictures of all the people, of course. I would also like to, of course, thank the Lynch School of Education for the support, the continued support, and we have our Dean, Stanton Wortham, here with us, who was so nice and joined us in this release, and we are very glad to work at Boston and are very happy to get all the support. I would like to, of course, say it's a wonderful collaboration with IEA. We are very glad that we are working in this environment that is really education-based and really thinking about how to improve education. We have consultants in development and sampling that do really hard work. We have people working on translation verification. But last but not least, we should really say that all the countries, the hundreds of people who are working on this project really do incredible work, and this is such high quality data that we should be really, really proud about these results. So, and I think, yeah, again, I would love to show 500 pages of pictures, but I can't. So that was it from the side of the highlights. You can scan this, but much better maybe gives an overview, a little video that we recorded. This video will be narrated by Dr. Ann Kennedy, also from our center at Boston College. She is not able to be here, but at least she sends her greetings via this video, so we hear her voice at least. Okay, so let's do the video.
The main page for the International Results in Mathematics and Science has 3 sections. The main page for the International Results in Mathematics and Science has 3 sections. The first section, about TIMSS 2023, provides an overview of the assessment and describes key aspects of the study. The second section provides the achievement results in mathematics and science at the 4th and 8th grade. The third section focuses on the contextual data for learning mathematics and science. In the Achievement Results section, a separate page for each domain presents infographics with the major findings in a carousel at the top of the page. It's followed by the links to exhibits and text describing the achievement results at each grade, including achievement distributions, international benchmarks, trends, and relative achievement in content and cognitive domains. One of the most dynamic features of the TIMSS 2023 International Results is the interactive exhibits. Each report exhibit has features that lets you customize how you view the data. The text at the top of the page describes the overall results shown in each exhibit. The reader is then invited to view the graphical results or the numerical results. Sorting options allow for the data to be sorted in a variety of ways. In this particular exhibit, sorting can be done alphabetically by country name or by percentiles of the score distribution. A search field allows the reader to select countries or benchmarking entities of interest. This particular exhibit also provides a list of countries with similar achievement results for a selected country or benchmarking participant. By hovering over the graphical results, a tooltip provides additional information from the numerical results. Here we see percentiles of the scale score distribution. Finally, the full exhibit can be downloaded in Excel or PDF format. Downloading the exhibit as a PNG will download the exhibit based on the filtered and sorted data. The percentages of students at the international benchmarks of achievement provide a nuanced picture of student performance across the proficiency levels, capturing the range of student abilities rather than focusing solely on average achievement scores. The default sort for the exhibit is by the percentage of students at the advanced international benchmark. However, the reader may select other sorting options of interest, including percentages of students at the lower benchmarks. By doing this, you can see that several countries have more than 90% of their students reaching at least the low benchmark. Sorting by the intermediate level, we can also see that many of the same countries have at least 2/3 of students reaching the intermediate international benchmark. Again, a reader can also search for specific countries and the tooltips also show more information about the international benchmarks when looking at the graphical results. The trend plots of average mathematics achievement for girls and boys exhibit shows trends back to 1995 for countries participating in past cycles. The default sorting option is alphabetically by country name. However, a reader may choose to sort by the size of the achievement gap. For example, sorting by the 2023 score gap in ascending order shows countries in order from smallest to largest gaps between girls' and boys' performance in mathematics at grade 4 in TIMSS 2023. This allows the reader to see the narrowing or widening gaps in achievement differences across countries more readily.
Thank you very much, and I'm handing over to Dirk.
Good morning also from my side. Tabakal here. It's very nice to be here. Thank you for hosting us here at the Ministry of Education, and thanks also for the ABEX to support this event. Thank you, Matthias, for this wealth of information. And it's quite a lot of information, and also the website, as you have seen, has even more information. So I'd like to focus a bit on what I think are some important key findings from that study. I think one thing that we can see is that there was a slight positive trend with only 13 of the 49 participating countries showing a decrease in student achievement in mathematics, grade 4. We saw the biggest increasements in grade 4 in mathematics in countries like Poland with 26 points, Montenegro 24, Saudi Arabia with 21 score points, Albania 18, Lithuania, United Arab Emirates, Georgia, Bulgaria, Qatar. So one thing that I found particularly interesting here is to see that these countries seem to be mostly from two regions, Eastern Europe and the Gulf region. And what I found particularly interesting here is to note, if you put it in a larger picture of studies that we've seen coming out after the pandemic, we saw a lot of decreases in achievement in PIRLS, in PISA, and other international studies. So with that respect, to put that into perspective, the TIMSS grade 4 is the first international study that's been released after the pandemic where we do not see these significant decreases, at least for the grade 4 students. So maybe there's some light, even though it's the same number of countries going up and down, just few countries more. But again, it's the first study that has these more positive results. And the same is actually true for science. We also see 2 countries more with increases than we saw with decreases. We saw the biggest increases in grade 4 in science in Saudi Arabia with 25 score points, Qatar, UAE, England, Poland, Australia, Morocco. So that's a more diverse group where we are seeing increases around the world. But Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and UAE remain the countries that have also shown increases here. Interestingly, as already also Matthias pointed out, we see a very different picture in TIMSS grade 8. In TIMSS grade 8, we saw 14 countries with decreasing significant mass achievement, and 17 with no change, and 15 with decreased significant science achievement, and 16 with no change, and only 3 countries with increases, which were in mathematics achievement, Romania, Sweden, and United Arab Emirates, and in science, it's England, Hong Kong, and United Arab Emirates. Overall, we are seeing here, again, a huge number of countries with decreasing results, which is very different from the grade 4 results, and definitely requires further investigation why we see these different trends in grade 4 and grade 8. As already pointed out, of course you may focus on the differences between the countries, but again, I think what's even more important and interesting to look at is the differences within all the countries. Equity in education is a goal that we see around the world. And the good news is that we see a substantial percentage of 4th and 8th grade students worldwide reach at least the low international benchmark in math and science. 91% of the 4th grade students reached the low benchmarks in mathematics and 90% in science. 81% of these 8th grade students reached the low benchmark in math and 80% in science. So that's very good, and I think that's very promising results that we are seeing here. But we also see a very well documented finding that there's a strong relationship between the students' background. We see that students with more home resources are doing better in mathematics and science in grade 4 and grade 8 across all the countries. Students with greater access to books, technology, and a supportive learning environment at home scored significantly higher in math and science. And that's definitely something I think that requires further emphasis on equity in all education systems. One thing regarding equity is, of course, also looking at gender differences. And we have done that also for a long time. And what we found this time in the TIMSS result is that the short-term trends between 2019 and 23 show a greater difference in math achievement between boys and girls, particularly in the 4th grade mathematics. The findings reveal that the gender differences in mathematics and science achievement have widened in many countries since 2019, particularly in grade 4. Even in countries where the gender gap favored girls in both cycles, the gap was smaller in 2023 compared to 2019. So the gender gap is widening, and we've seen the largest gender gaps that we've ever seen in TIMSS, and that's definitely something that I think requires investigation, requires our attention, and something that needs to be looked at all levels. We don't know about the possible causes yet, but definitely important to look at that. Another area that's really also at my heart is we have also a lot of information on environmental protection. In addition to the results of the achievement, TIMSS 23 also provides a wealth of data on important aspects. And we have an environmental awareness scale that was added post hoc in TIMSS 2019 based on the items related to the topic in order to investigate what students knew about environmental related topics as well as how they felt about their importance. For 2023, we were able to develop questions with a scale already in mind, allowing us to expand this imperative topic. And it's interesting to know that the students who value environmental preservation seem also to have a higher achievement of knowledge in that subject. And I think that's also something that's important and we'll continue to look at. Another topic that was already touched by Matthias is absenteeism. And I think that's something that's really, really disturbing also. We saw that in grade 4, 20% of the students are absent at least once every 2 weeks. In grade 8, it's 22% of the grade 8 students who are absent at least once every 2 weeks. And even 1 out of 10 students reported to be absent about weekly. And as Matthias has shown, there's a strong relationship between achievement and absenteeism. So that's definitely something to look at, and that definitely requires also attention. It's very disturbing to see that students at this very, very young age seem to be already somewhat disengaged at school. So that requires our attention, and since we saw that the students who are less frequently absent also perform better, it means it's important to get them into the schools. Another point that's really also at my heart is the attitudes towards achievement. And especially what we have seen, there's an increase in students who do not like to learn some subjects. And in science, there's an increasement from 18% of students in grade 4 to 26% who don't like to learn science in 8th grade. And in mathematics, this percentage of students has grown from 24% to 46% of the students in grade 8 who said they don't like to learn mathematics. And my background is in mathematics, and I think it's a great subject. And I think it's so important that we get this message to the students, what a wonderful subject it is. That our teachers are able to share their passion for this subject. There's the reason why they are teaching mathematics, I hope. So I think it's an important message. We need to also have this passion of the students and make them like learning and love learning it. We also have some positive examples, actually, where the increase of disliking mathematics is lower than in other countries. For example, in Uzbekistan, the increase is only 7%. In Singapore, it's only 8% between grade 4 and grade 8. So there are some examples with very different countries, which we might be able to learn from what they do differently here. So altogether, the benefits of the wealth of the data and the varieties of topics covered within TIMSS offer huge opportunities for further investigations. One major product besides the international report and also further reports to come is the data. The data will be publicly available pretty soon, in February, when all the documentation is finished. It also will not include only the achievement data and the data you have seen, but since it's a computer-based assessment, we will also have data on the process, how long students took each item to work on, how long they worked on it in total, if they've gone back and things like that. So there's a wealth of information that can be studied from the data. And also we offer regular workshops also on that. One thing I also like to mention is there are different reports. One of them is also what we call teacher snippets, 2 of which have been released today. They are available and targeted more to the teacher audience. They are provided in English with translation guidelines, and I hope that many countries will pick it up and translate them in their respective languages, also to make them available to their teachers. So, if I summarize, what I see here is that the TIMSS 2023 results show both continued report for some recognized patterns, like home resources and achievement and the relationship, alongside, I think, with some new and surprising ones, like the gender gap widening. 28 years of trends provide policymakers with high-quality, unbiased data to target their interventions, to ensure that all the students have tools they need to be successful. By identifying and addressing these disparities, policymakers and educators can ensure that all students, regardless of gender or background are equally supported in their academic, career and aspirations, particularly in critical STEM areas. Of course, this work has not been possible with all the work from many people around the world. So I appreciate all the support that we got from all the countries, from schools, from principals, from teachers, from students, from parents who answered all these questions. Without them, we would not have this data. So with that, I thank for this, but I also want to look ahead. And the next cycle is just around the corner. So we will launch also the TIMSS 2027 cycle beginning of next year. And also that will provide a unique opportunity to measure educational progress and benchmark globally over time. It will be fully digital and an adaptive design to tailor students' achievement levels. The framework will be updated and info on future curriculum policies will be included. And again, as Matthias mentioned, TIMSS is not only achievement, it has huge background information from students, from the parents of the students in grade 4, from their math and science teachers, from principals. And also with that, the TIMSS 2027 will give you excellent new information to guide future policies in education. With that, I thank you all for your attention. It's wonderful to be here in the United Arab Emirates in Dubai. And I hope that many, many more results and in-depth analysis of all the data will continue to improve education in all of your countries, because that's what we're all working for, to improve education worldwide. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Matthias. Thank you very much, Dirk, for all these results, very important results. As you said, a lot of things to dig in, of course. That's a first bunch of big results, but still a lot to digest. We have a bit of time for questions now, like 15 minutes. Just for you to know, there are around 450 persons connected who listen to you. Not many questions in the chat for the moment, but in the audience, if you have any question, please, we would be very happy to hear from you. So don't be shy. And there is one question was about, in the chat, was about which student decrease, which increase. You said there is no regular pattern, it will depend on countries, etc. But I think then behind the you talked a bit about the COVID effect and the fact that, for example, in PIRLS, we have a really different image than in TIMSS. So how could you explain that different perspective from one study to another regarding the COVID crisis effect? Maybe Matthias first?
Dirk had this nice expression of the light at the end of the tunnel, at least for the 4th grade. So certainly when we came out of COVID, we expected long-term effects, and we were afraid that essentially it would take a long time to recover. My assumption is that countries, at least for the 4th grade, were quite successful to catch up and were able to actually turn around. We need really a deep dive into that, and we really need a country-by-country look into this, just because every country is different in terms of how countries reacted to COVID, whether it was hybrid instruction, whether it was more online materials. Just to give a little bit of a pitch, we have an insights reports on COVID-related questions from the PIRLS assessment. So what is really important now is to say, well, this is good news in the 4th grade, but now let's dig into maybe the differences that we see in increases versus decreases across countries, what the different policies were.
Thank you, Matthias. Maybe Dirk, you want to add on that?
Sure. I think what Matthias said is right, that there were different policies between different countries, and there's probably also different policies how in the pandemic the primary students were catered and how the secondary students were catered. And also that differed between countries. So I think it's certainly important to look into that and maybe also to learn for the future of what are successful approaches in emergency cases like we had with the pandemic. How can we learn that education is disrupted the least? And I think also for that, the TIMSS data provides us with a nice basis to look into that further.
Thank you very much. Any question in the room? Please do not hesitate again. You still have a bit of time, so reflect on. There was a question about the long-term comparison question saying, how relevant are TIMSS items from 28 years ago in a fast-changing society? But maybe you can explain a bit how the common items, etc., how do we compare from a long-term perspective?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So we provide long-term trends from 1995 to 2023. That is something that we stand behind. However, we also have to understand, as I think education goes into the future, education changes, assessments change over time. And people have talked about this a long time, that large-scale assessments have to face both the changes in the assessment that are needed to reflect the latest curricula, as well as the need to provide consistency over time. So these two needs are balanced by having a large overlap with the most direct previous cycles. So in this case, in 2019 and 2023, we have the most overlap in terms of what we are testing. But we also exchange every time to fit the assessment to what the countries want, what they teach in their curricula, what needs to be covered, because we really want to listen to what countries are doing, rather than just test something that is completely, not irrelevant maybe, but completely disjunct from what countries are actually teaching in the classroom. At the same time, we also have to move into the future to use more technology. So even though we provide trend data and we say, well, this is the TIMSS trend scale, slowly over time between each cycle we have some changes in the assessment. And of course we didn't have computer-based assessment in 1995. But the data are comparable in the sense of we still measure the same mathematics construct with slow changes in the coverage and the curriculum.
Just on that precisely, because there are some questions about the transitioning from paper and pencil to computer-based assessment. So how has it impacted the results, and how was it taken into account into in the trends analysis?
Yeah, that leads us back to TIMSS 2019, actually, where we started the transition and where about 50% of the countries already took the computer-based assessment. TIMSS took a very careful approach. So the items, the questions were analyzed in terms of how comparable they are. And we relied on a bridge study that actually looked into how comparable the results are and adjusted when needed for that. so that we can compare the results on the computer-based assessment with the results on the paper-based assessment. So that was done in a very careful way with a very elaborate study. Many countries participated and contributed to this data, and we looked extremely carefully for differences in each of the items and adjusted if necessary.
Thank you, Matthias. We have a question in the room in the back there. If you can introduce yourself and ask a question, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Just, I want to know if there is any effect for COVID-19 for the results of math and science, since we know that, some countries closed for, a long time, and the students were in COVID-19, I think in grade 2, some of them, and some of them in grade 1. So I'm wondering if there is any effect of COVID-19 for the results. Have you noticed that? Especially for those countries who closed the schools for a long time. Thank you.
Yeah, these are the very clear questions that are on everybody's mind, but they are not as easy to answer because we do not exactly test the same students in grade 2 and grade 4 again. We assume there is a COVID effect, of course, but to test the same students again and again, that doesn't happen very often. So what we have is a comparison to comparable populations and groups of students, for example, in 2019. So again, we could look at similar students in the previous assessment and in this current data and see what the differences are and whether we see maybe different types of growths or different types of divergence between the results. But we cannot directly compare because we do not test the same students before and after COVID. However, the data gives rich information about how to see what comparable groups of students are doing.
Thank you, Matthias. Maybe a question for Dirk on the relationship between policies. There was always a question, what kind of policies could bring to improvement in the results, or another way, that is a classical question, what can we learn from the best, for the top performers? That's some question in the chat.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful one, because that also partly goes into the question about this COVID effect, because what we know what's going on is that there are policy changes all over the world. So how do you disentangle between what is the effect of COVID and what is the effect of potential policy changes? And especially one thing to keep in mind is that if you change a policy, then not the next day the achievement of the students will change. But it takes a while. If you change your curriculum, you probably also need to teach your teachers how to teach this new curriculum, make them familiar with that. You need to have textbooks that are related to this curriculum. So altogether, you see it takes between 5, sometimes even 10 years before you can really see results from policy changes. Although there are some positive examples also of policy changes that were had a quite immediate effect. And I think it's up to the countries to learn what are the policy implications and what they can learn in their respective countries. And what you learn is probably very different country by country. On the IEA website, we, for example, also have one compass brief from Chinese Taipei about what they learned. And for example, they had compared their achievement levels to other countries in the region and found that they had very nice averages, but they had more students on the lower end. So they investigated that further, and what they came up with is that they had invented a program to especially support lower achieving students. And from one cycle to the next in TIMSS, their achievement level of this lower part of the distribution has increased significantly. So that's only one example. And on the IEA website, we also have many examples, and there's also some policy analysis on policies that were implemented after seeing the TIMSS results or other IA studies results like PIRLS or ICLS. So the takeaways, I think, from countries are different. I strongly believe that all countries can learn from it and also learn from other countries. It's not a copying of policy. You cannot copy one policy from one country to the next or copy an education system out of context from one country to the next. But you can look at other countries and learn from that. And that's, I think, the value of an international study like TIMSS. It provides you an outside perspective and comparisons across countries.
Thank you, Dirk. Please. Yes, please.
Yes, thank you very much for this insightful presentation. I would like to ask, we know that international assessments such as TIMSS usually is very helpful in the policy level improvement. But what about the school practice? Can we use this data and result to improve school practice? To go in a second level, not only on the policy level? Thank you.
Yeah, and online there are also questions on school and teacher practices. How can we learn from the study too?
Yeah, I think that's an important aspect because we all know teachers matter, teaching matters. So that's where we want to finally go. And that's also why in TIMSS we have this wonderful study design that we don't not only assess the students, but we ask the teachers of the assessed students. So we have a direct link between students and their respective subject teachers, which offers huge opportunities. But also we ask ourselves, IA started with research reports, then we did some policy reports, more addressed to policy. So what's in it for the teachers and in schools? And we have very nice section also on the IA website with materials for the teachers. That's been edited by my colleagues Paula Koshnakova and Andrea Nettin, who is here with us and who can share a lot of information on that. We develop materials for teachers. There's, for example, one about teaching of students with different language backgrounds. We also have very small things that you can put on the wall because we know teachers and practitioners, they need maybe some different information. They might not be that interested in statistics, but they might be interested to getting something really tangible. What can I do in my school, in my classroom to improve the learning? And for that, we are also using materials from IA studies, also from TIMSS, and also our colleagues from Boston College just produced two very nice pieces of information for the teachers how to improve learning in schools. So we also try to help with that, and all these materials are available on the website in English, but with guidelines how to translate them into each of the respective languages. And I can strongly recommend, please make use of that. I think it's very valuable. The feedback we got from teachers, also from teacher unions, is very positive. So I think we can make also a direct impact on the teaching and learning in schools.
Thank you, Dirk. Matthias, you want to add?
Yeah, just a tiny addition to that, because we're in the advertisement section. So we also have the encyclopedia, we have our curriculum questionnaire, and we have teaching practices in the questionnaires that teachers respond to. So I would believe that TIMSS really also provides a rich resource for teacher education, so that you can actually use it not only directly to teachers who are already in service, but also while you're training teachers, you have a lot of data and materials that can be used in that, for that purpose.
Thank you very much, both of you. We are almost at the end of our session. Maybe a final word on from your point of view, are the most maybe surprising results, or some data you want to dig in more in the coming months to finish with? Maybe Dirk to start?
Sure. I think it's at everyone's heart to look what is actually also the COVID effect, so that's definitely something to better look into. Also the differences that we're seeing between grade 4 and grade 8. I'm also personally very interested in the gender gap that we're seeing. I'm a father of 3 girls, so I really don't like to see that we see girls falling behind in the STEM subject. So I think that's definitely something I would be personally very, very interested in. And I also would like to see how can we increase the students valuing and like learning subjects like mathematics. I think it's so important. It's such a wonderful subject, and it's so sad that in grade 8, nearly 50% of the students say that they dislike learning mathematics. I think that's really something that's, I guess, a task for every one of us to look, what can we do to improve that? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dirk. What about you, Matthias?
Yeah, for me, it's the long-term trend data. So I would really like to dig more into that, how we see long-term trends. We have a lot of countries that participated for a long time in TIMSS. The differences between 4th and 8th grade and the consistencies there, and the changes in liking, for example, the subjects. And then, of course, we now have a computer-based assessment. So for me, it's also a reason for looking into more how students are actually approaching the more complex items, the more interactive items. We have a lot of very nice problem-solving and inquiry items, and those provide a host of additional data, which is another pitch for the database that will come very soon. So that's not only a call for us at the Boston College to dig into that, but also the process data and all the response data will be available very soon for the international research community.
Thank you very much, both of you. Many exciting analysis to come. As I said, we reached the end of our session. It went very fast. A lot of questions still in the chat, but there are some infos put by the IEA team. We try to bring it more, but many questions to come. This is just normal. It's the beginning of a lot of analysis. I want to thank all the participants in the live stream event. Please stay online because there will be a video at the end about the TIMSS results, and a questionnaire for your satisfaction questionnaire that you can fill at the end of the live stream. Thank you very much again for you online and for you in the room to be here with us and to have listened to the result. And I want to give an applause to our speakers again to thank them.
IEA's TIMSS is the longest-running international assessment of mathematics and science at the 4th and 8th grades. Directed by the TIMSS and PIRLS International Study Center at Boston College, TIMSS has monitored trends in mathematics and science achievement around the world since 1995, gathering high-quality data that policymakers can use to make evidence-based decisions about mathematics and science curricula and instruction. TIMSS 2023 was the 8th cycle of TIMSS, providing 28 years of trend data for mathematics and science achievement at the 4th and 8th grades. TIMSS 2023 is the first fully digital cycle of TIMSS, and almost all countries administered a computer-based assessment to their students. In addition to this achievement data, TIMSS 2023 includes contextual data describing students' experiences at home and school, and information about national policies related to education. Across the 4th and 8th grades, over 500,000 students in 64 countries participated in TIMSS 2023. 59 countries and 6 benchmarking participants participated at the 4th grade, and 44 countries and 3 benchmarking participants participated at the 8th grade. The TIMSS mathematics and science assessments are based upon internationally agreed upon frameworks that specify the topics and skills that are appropriate to measure for 4th and 8th grade students across countries. The TIMSS 2023 frameworks also include information about contextual data collected and the assessment design. The TIMSS 2023 International Benchmarks of Mathematics and Science Achievement describe the knowledge and skills that 4th and 8th grade students demonstrate at different levels of performance on the TIMSS assessments. The Advanced International Benchmark characterizes the highest levels of mathematics and science achievement and describes the knowledge and skills demonstrated by top-performing students. The Low International Benchmarks characterize minimal levels of proficiency in mathematics and science for 4th and 8th grade students. The Intermediate and High International Benchmarks describe mathematics and science achievement at levels between the low and advanced benchmarks. The benchmarks build upon each other, meaning that students who reach the highest benchmark also reach all lower benchmarks. In mathematics, 91% of 4th grade students internationally reached the low benchmark, meaning that they demonstrated basic mathematical understanding by performing tasks such as adding and subtracting with numbers up to 3 digits and reading data from different representations. 70% of students reached the intermediate benchmark, and 35% of students reached the high benchmark. Only 7% of students reached the advanced benchmark. These students demonstrated that they could select and relate information to implement appropriate operations to solve problems by performing tasks such as interpreting the results of computations given in problem contexts and interpreting and making choices about data in numerous contexts. In science, 90% of 4th grade students internationally reached the low benchmark. These students showed knowledge of some science facts, such as basic knowledge of plants, animals, and the environment, as well as Earth's characteristics and its climate. 70% of students reached the intermediate benchmark, and 31% of students reached the high benchmark. Only 7% of students reached the advanced benchmark, demonstrating that they could show, apply, and communicate their knowledge of life, physical, and earth sciences, and engage in multiple scientific inquiry practices. These students demonstrated knowledge of topics such as the characteristics of living things, properties of matter, and use of Earth's natural resources. In mathematics, 81% of 8th grade students internationally reached the low benchmark, demonstrating knowledge of integers, basic shapes, and visual representations. Students at this level performed tasks such as applying basic properties of whole numbers and finding the lengths of sides and polygons. 55% of students reached the intermediate benchmark, and 28% of students reached the high benchmark. Only 7% of students reached the advanced benchmark, demonstrating their abilities to extend understanding beyond working with integers alone to solve a variety of problems in novel contexts. Students at this level performed tasks such as formulating expressions and solving algebraic equations.